Welcome back. In this lesson, we're going to talk about the first tier of persuasion. Now, really what we're going to do here is just talk about some foundational principles that you need to have in place in order for the rest of what we're going to talk about to actually make sense. So the first thing is your mindset. You have to be confident and you have to understand that people, as I said before, are not creatures of logic. And so, for the most part, as a general rule, you want to avoid trying to logically make sense out of everything you're about to learn because it's not based on logic. So, let me say that again. Not only do we have to understand that people are not creatures of logic in order to effectively persuade them, but you have to understand that people are not creatures of logic, and because of that, you need to easily be able to persuade yourself that what you're about to learn is actually real and makes sense, okay? Because what I mean by that is that oftentimes, because people think that most people are logical, when I start to explain the process of persuasion and how it works, many people will dispute what I'm saying. They'll say, no, that doesn't make sense. I don't believe that. That's not how people make decisions. But the research is there. The science is there. The proof is there. So all I'm going to ask you to do for now is, if you truly believe that people are logical most of the time, including yourself, just suspend that disbelief temporarily. Because by the time you finish this course, you're going to understand how emotional and illogical people are most of the time and how you can use that to your advantage. The second thing that I need you to do is to visualize. If you can effectively visualize yourself becoming an expert at persuasion and clearly envision yourself persuading the person, the people, the audience, the market that you're going to speak to, the odds are you'll become that much more effective. And so the reason why I mention this is because I often talk about these 20 foundational principles that I've discovered in my 20 years of studying influence and persuasion. And I'll be completely honest. In my opinion, one of those principles that I talk about is the fact that most master persuaders are born that way. They're born with a certain level of charisma or a certain level of energy and excitement in and extrovertedness in the way that they communicate with people. And so what I mean by that, or they have a curiosity. They have an innate curiosity about other people, right? So you don't necessarily have to be charismatic. You don't have to be that person that walks into the room and lights it up and magnetizes everybody toward you. You don't have to be that person. But if you are genuinely curious about other people and interested in other people and to that effect, even interested in how things work, then you are born with the skills needed to become a master of persuasion. So that's what I mean when I say that most masters of persuasion are born. They either have those likable traits of charisma and outgoingness and extrovertedness, or they're innately curious and interested in other people. And my belief is that you are one of those people, because if you weren't, you wouldn't be taking this course and you wouldn't be curious and interested in learning about the stuff that I'm teaching here. But what I want you to realize is that the sooner you're able to visualize yourself becoming that expert at persuasion, becoming that person that's able to articulate your points like a master and provide proof and overcome objections and negotiate, the sooner you'll actually become that person. Next thing you need to know is begin with the end in mind. You already know what your destination is. Now just figure out the steps that you need to take prior to getting there that lead to where you are right now. This leaves no room for straying off your path, and winding up in unknown territory. So, the first thing that we need to talk about when it comes to persuasion are belief systems. Now, these are the mindsets of people and their decisions. And the fact of the matter is that those mindsets and their decisions are dictated by belief systems. Now, these belief systems can be altered by emotions. Human beings generally have a very distorted recollection of their previous experiences. And so this circles me into the topic of NLP again, where we talk about certain filters that people have. So one foundational principle of NLP is that the map is not the territory. And so what that means is that, let's imagine that you were driving somewhere and you have, years ago it would be a physical paper map, but nowadays it's a GPS system, probably in your phone, right? So when you look at that GPS system represents a geographical, if that's the right word, territory, right? But when you actually get to that territory and you get out of your car and you arrive there and you walk around, it looks very different than it does on the GPS system, right? And that's because the map is nothing more than a represented version of that territory. The map is the territory and how it's represented visually in a device so that we can navigate around it, okay? But it's quite different than the actual location and the actual territory. Well, the same is true of the way people make sense of the world. We use our brains as maps to make judgments and decisions about the territory, which is the real world. And because everybody's map is different, no two people see the real world the same way. In fact, the real world is actually a very subjective thing. You know, studies have shown that if you put 20 people in a room and have them look at an apple, each one of them is going to perceive that apple slightly differently, even though it's something extremely objective. It's an apple. We know what it looks like. We know what it tastes like. We know what it feels like. Yet, every person will perceive that apple slightly differently. And that's something extremely objective. That's an apple. Well, imagine how crazy and interesting things get when we start talking about subjective things like opinions and belief systems and thoughts, right? And so, because we all make sense of the world in a different way, we do that through certain filters. And the three main filters that we use are distortion, deletion, and generalization. And just a quick overview of what they are, okay? Distortion is when you experience an event, but then when you recollect it later, it's fuzzy, or it's not actually what happened in real life. So it's a distorted recollection of what happened. Next is generalization, where because something happens to us, because we experience something, or because we have a certain type of experience, we then create generalizations about people, like all women are bad drivers, or things never seem to work out for me, or you always yell at me, or you always blame me, right? Or all Mac computers are terrible, right? We create these generalizations based on previous experiences that we've had. And then the third one is deletion, which is where we have an experience, but then we completely delete something that happened within that experience. And so an example might be that I get into an argument with my wife, let's say, where the two of us are having a conversation, and maybe, so let's go to distortion, right? So let's say I cook an entire dinner for my wife and my family, And then by the time I'm done with this dinner, I'm completely exhausted. And I say to my wife, do you think you could do the dishes? And she says to me, why are you acting like I don't do anything? Right? So there we have a distortion and a generalization, right? A distortion and a generalization. Because she's generalizing, saying you act like I never do anything. So she's generalizing the statement. And she's also distorting her meaning of what I'm saying is distorted. My context of that was, hey, I cooked the entire dinner. Can you do the dishes? So in other words, in this whole process of us eating dinner, I did 90% of the work. Can you take care of the last 10%? Well, she interpreted that because I said, can you do the dishes? She interpreted that as me saying that she never does anything, right? And maybe the day before she did the dishes and I thanked her for it, but she doesn't remember that. So she completely deleted that. So from that one little interaction, we have a deletion where she doesn't remember that I thanked her yesterday for everything that she does, including the dishes. The message was distorted because me just asking her to take care of the last 10% of the dinner process, she interpreted that as me insinuating that she never does anything. And then because of her of her thinking that I said she never does anything, she generalized it, right? So these are how people can distort their recollection of previous experiences and then start to create belief systems based on that. So that's just something that you need to know and understand. You always want to set the stage with environment and allies. A person's environment has a huge impact on the way that they behave. The environment, if the environment, I should say, is something that you can control, you want to be able to do that because then you can begin to predict how people will act, right? People act different at a funeral than they do at a wedding. Same group of people could be at a funeral. They're going to act different than they would at a wedding. You act different at a sports game than you do when you are having a quiet dinner with your wife, right? You act different when you're having a beer with your buddies than you do at a job interview, right? If you remove people from their normal environments, you have a better chance of gaining compliance from them because you've taken their mind into a state that is more suggestible. We'll get more into that later, but it's something that I want you to understand. Next comes your message, like what you're actually communicating to people. And what you want to decide is how much info is actually needed. Your information is going to be based on how much information the person you're speaking to has on the topic already. Now, this could be your audience. It could be an individual person. It could be a market if we're talking about marketing. But generally speaking, now we'll get more specific, but I'm talking about generally, we have the experts, the people that have extensive knowledge in a certain area. They don't need to learn about the benefits of what you have to offer because all they're going to do is simply link whatever you're telling them to whatever they have stored in their memory about a topic. So here, you want to focus on the features which make you better, right? More superior, faster, easier, a better choice than your competitors. If you appear to lack knowledge about what you're offering, you're going to lose them completely. And then we have non-experts, which are people that have no idea or any prior knowledge. And for them, you have to give them less information so they can process quickly and in your favor. With that type of a person, you want to spend most of your time on benefits, as peripheral cues play a big role in influencing this type of individual. Now, in classic direct response marketing, we have this concept of the prospect awareness pyramid. But the reality is this fits in to the equation whether you are doing marketing, sales, speaking to somebody face-to-face, online, digital marketing. It doesn't matter. And what this prospect awareness pyramid shows us is that there are essentially 5 levels of awareness that a person, a prospect, can have when it comes to whatever you're offering or talking to them about. So the first group of people, which is the widest and the biggest group of people, are the people that are completely unaware. They're unaware that they have a problem. They're unaware of any sort of solutions. They're unaware of products. They're just completely unaware of anything. Okay? The next group of people are problem aware. Okay? So they're aware that they have a problem. So let's take high blood pressure, for example. Okay? So let's say I was scrolling through my feed on Facebook and I came across an ad, and the ad said, do you experience frequent headaches and feeling like you're hot and sweaty all the time? You may have high blood pressure, and if you do, your life may be at risk. Okay, that's an example of a completely unaware person. A person that is not aware of a problem, they're not aware of a solution, they're just unaware that the problem even exists, but now their curiosity has been piqued, okay? The next level is the problem-aware person. So here we have a person that's aware that they have high blood pressure, but they're not aware of the different types of solutions that are out there, which could be medication, could be surgery, could be supplements, could be dietary changes. They're not aware of these different solutions. In the next category, we have people that are solution aware. So this is somebody that knows they have high blood pressure. They know that the different solutions out there are things like diet, supplements, medication, exercise. They know all of the different solutions that are out there, okay? The next group of people are people that know they have high blood pressure, they know what the solutions are, and they know what the products are. They know specifically what supplements are out there. They know specifically what medications are out there. They know specifically what dietary solutions are out there. And then lastly, we have the most aware people, which are aware of all of these different things, and now they're just trying to decide out of all of them which one they want to pick, which one has the best price, which one has the best offer. And so as we go up this pyramid, the audience, the market, the group of people shrinks, but our ability to speak to them becomes much more direct, right? Because in the completely unaware segment, I have to do a lot of educating. I have to educate them on how high blood pressure affects their body and why they're at risk. Versus the people that are most aware, I don't have to educate them on the problem. I don't have to educate them on the solution. I just have to show them why mine is the best. So somebody in the completely unaware market, again, I'd have to do a lot of explaining, a lot of educating them on how high blood pressure affects them. Whereas the people at the top of that pyramid, I could just go to them and say, hey, look, my blood pressure supplement is faster, easier, more effective, and less expensive than everybody else's. Here's why you should buy it now. Completely different way of communicating with these people. For the most part, let's just focus on problem aware versus solution aware. So when delivering your message, convince the audience that your knowledge, education, experience, expertise, product, service, offer makes you the go-to person or is the best solution. By presenting the problem clearly and then arriving at a solution, that will help you influence their decision-making process. When speaking to them face-to-face, slow down and pause. By pausing and slowing down the pace of delivery of the message, you can ensure that what you're trying to convey has effectively been received. Limit their choices. Limiting options being presented will channel the audience toward the desired outcome. TMI, or too much information, will overwhelm people and often lead them to confusion. Lots of times I meet people, whether they're marketers or salespeople, and they believe that more is better. They believe that the more options they provide, the more opportunity there is for their prospect to say yes, to buy, to invest, to take advantage of their offer. But the reality is, research shows that the more choices you offer, the more confused and undecisive people become. Repetition. This is how you enhance your message. This is the key. The key is repetition. Make it sound different each time so it doesn't sound as though you only have one thing to offer and you just keep returning back to it. Meaning, if the first time I present my offer, I talk about the benefits of it, the second time I present it, I'm going to talk about the features. And each time I talk about a feature or a benefit, I will talk about different types of benefits, right? So we, generally speaking, especially in the world of direct response, there are three types of benefits that we talk about. We talk about functional benefits, which is what the product or service does. Emotional benefits, which are how the prospect will feel after they've experienced the functional benefit. And then the dimensionalized benefit is how they will experience the emotion and the functionality, but in their specific world. So an example of that would be, again, going back to a weight loss supplement. Let's say I have a weight loss supplement. It's got 8 ingredients in it, and these ingredients work to burn fat. Well, if my ideal prospect was a woman who's in her 40s, who's had a couple of kids, and now she's overweight and wants to lose weight, I'm going to describe those benefits completely differently to her than I would to a guy who's using it just because he wants to get shredded, right, and go to the beach and feel better when he goes to the beach, right? It's so the example is, so the functional benefit is this product will help you burn fat, right? These 8 ingredients work together to burn fat effectively, and here's the science behind it, etc. The emotional benefit for the woman is that she's going to feel more confident in herself. She's going to feel less self-conscious. She's not going to have to worry about people whispering and making fun of her and talking about her behind her back and saying things like, how did she let herself go, and why did she gain so much weight, right? So that the next time she meets up with her girlfriends who she hasn't seen in a long time for let's say coffee, she's not going to have to worry about them making fun of her or talking about her behind her back when they leave, right? So there I've described the functional benefit, which is that the product helps you burn fat. The emotional benefit, which is that she's going to not feel self-conscious anymore. And the dimensionalized benefit, where I talk about an actual event that is specific to her life, which is going out to brunch or breakfast with a bunch of her friends, right? Versus how I would talk about that if I was talking to a bodybuilder who just wants to go to the beach and have all the women looking at him, or walk into the gym and he wants to feel like he's the alpha male, or puts on a bathing suit and has a six-pack abs, right? Completely different way of repeating the benefits, but talking about different things. You also want to focus on why the information that you have, whether it's about you, your product, your service, is different than your competition. One thing I want you to understand is that different gets attention, okay? And without attention, you don't have anything. You can't sell, you can't close, you can't gain compliance, you can't influence, you can't persuade if you don't have attention. Well, one of the easiest ways to get attention is through differentiation. Again, you also want to find out how much your target knows about the benefits of what you have to offer before you even speak to them. Focus on the features of what you have to offer. Introduce something called a big idea. A big idea is a way of introducing your message, your concept, your pitch, your offer in a way that they haven't heard before. So, one of the examples that I like to give is the idea that you can fry food without oil, right? So, like, why do people generally like fried foods? Well, because they taste good and they have a good texture, okay? So they taste good and they have a good texture. The problem with fried foods is that they're unhealthy for you. Well, what if you could fry food without oil? What if you could fry food with air? Air is much healthier than oil, yet you could get the same taste and the same texture without all of the downsides of the health issues? Well, enter the air fryer. But the reality is, the air fryer is not new. The air fryer is actually a convection oven, and convection ovens have been used for decades in restaurants to heat food fast. And all they do is basically use convection technology, which is a bunch of fans that are inside the device that circulate the air and enable you to cook the food extremely fast and get the texture that you want without using oil. Well, somewhere in some boardroom at some point, a marketer decided, how could we market this thing? How could we bring it to the public? What big idea could we put behind this, right? Because we don't want to just present it as a convection oven. We want to present it as something new, something memorable, something intriguing, something interesting. We do that with a big idea, right? And so it's not about the idea of heating food using convection technology. That's been heard before. So how do we create something new and something big? We create the air fryer. You also want to create a vision. This works extremely well when dealing with people that have limited knowledge or are not experts, because if people can see themselves using your product or service, they're more likely to want it and to remember it more. So you want to create a clear, vivid vision of them experiencing the functional, emotional, and dimensionalized benefits of using your product or service. And then you want to always introduce a unique mechanism. A unique mechanism is a unique part, component, formula, algorithm, process, method that your product, service, or knowledge has that nobody else has. It's a unique component within your process that they can't get anywhere else. And what's the reason for that? The reason for that is because if they can get it somewhere else, they will go somewhere else. So you always want to make sure that your message includes some sort of a unique mechanism.